Hi everyone, it's Yvette Blowitz from SPAITGIRL.com and welcome to the Spirit Girl Talk Show podcast. Super excited to be here with you today in this online audio space and with our very special guest. And her name is Tammi Kirkness, and she is the founder of VisionScope Coaching. She's a head life coach and a corporate wellness consultant, and also the author of her brand new book, The Panic Button Book, which is a practical step-by-step guide to help you through the moments when you feel worried or panicky. Hello, Tammi. Welcome.
Hi, Yvette. Thanks for having me.
Congratulations on the launch of your brand new book. It is so beautiful. I grabbed this copy. Big shout out to Big W Australia, but I grabbed this copy. I love the color of the book. It's one of my favorite colors, but I also love, I love how this feels like it's the panic button book, like hit the panic button, but also how it's a step-by-step guide. And in here, you share all of these incredible decision trees and ways to neutralize worry, overthinking, anxiety. So we're going to dive a little bit more into this book, but congratulations to you and the team at Murdoch Books for bringing such an incredible book to 2020. Congratulations, Tammi. How does it feel to be a published author and see your book in retail stores, bookstores, and selling globally?
It feels surreal. It's always been a dream of mine to create a book that would help lots of people, and being able to walk into Target and Kmart and Dimmicks and all of these bookstores that I've been frequenting for years and see my name there and see my book there feels so special. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it must be so special. So what we'll do for our podcast listeners who don't know anything about you, can you share in your own words who you are, and also then what inspired you to want to become this life coach, and also to help people who were needing to overcome anxiety?
Yeah, I started off my world in psychology and business when I was at university, and I loved this combination of why people do what they do and what motivates us to make decisions and feel happy or feel anxious or feel flat or whatever it is. And that led me into the corporate sector of all things people, so recruitment, HR, training, development, all of these different areas. And then at one point, my hippy dippy soul, it reared its head up and it said, Tammi, you know what you need to do? You need to go to the south of India, you need to find a whole bunch of monks, and you need to become a yoga teacher. So contrary to any of the plans I previously had, I followed along with that and had an amazing experience over there, one which was major in an internal journey and major lessons in patience. Monks can outlast you in absolutely everything. And then I worked over in the UK as a clinician for adults and kids with learning difficulties, and a lot of those little minds also went hand in hand with being overthinkers and worriers. And, you know, that really highlighted a lot for me that I have a very similar mind to them. Eventually I came back to Australia and went back into the corporate space, and having had a background in always being a perfectionist, an overthinker, an overanalyzer, a striver, an achiever, you know, somebody who just wanted to drink in recognition and make good work. Eventually it caught up with me, and I completely burnt out, and the burnout looked like walking through the corporate office one day, and literally as I stepped my left foot forward, I blanked out for a moment. I was so exhausted from overthinking, from being wired and switched on and looking like I had it all together for so many years, that it was a massive wake-up call. And that led me to leave the corporate space and prompted me to want to help other people avoid that feeling of burnout and overextension and exhaustion that comes from feeling consistently wired and worried. And so that prompted me to pull together all of those rather disparate bits and pieces, career-wise and personally, to start my coaching company, VisionScope Coaching. And initially, my idea was to help people who were having a bit of a quarter-life crisis and who needed a bit of extra direction. But as the universe would have it, you get sent who you need to help. And all of the people who got sent my way, almost all of them, were women who were high achieving, switched on, intelligent individuals who were pushing themselves too hard, looking externally like they had everything together, but internally had that churny tummy, they had a tight jaw, their heart was thumping, and they were very anxious inside, but nobody would have known. So that's what prompted me to get to that point in particular. Personally, running alongside of that, I had also had my first panic attack when I was 20 years old, and I didn't see it coming. I was working in an office in Melbourne, and out of nowhere, I clutched my chest and I thought I was having a panic attack. A heart attack. And I was so shocked and disarmed by this that I picked up my handbag, said to my boss I was just going out for a moment because I was so mortified and embarrassed, and got in a cab and went straight to the emergency room. And it was the doctor who was on shift after being hooked up to ECG machines and the lot, who came and said, look, the good news is your heart is very healthy. The not so good news is we're pretty sure you just had a panic attack. And that was one of the other key moments that prompted me to look into this world even more so, of how our brains function and how we show up and what we can do about it.
Wow, Tammi, thank you for sharing that story with myself and our listeners, because just starting from the beginning, you go to India, you spend time with monks. During that time with the monks, were you meditating? Did you like literally have to sleep on the floor, or you were able to go back to your hotel room and not do the full-on monk thing? I mean, were you just sitting there learning how to chant, breathe, just be by yourself?
Yes. I would love to say we went back to a beautiful hotel room. No. The mattresses were made of straw, so slept on those for quite a while, but you get used to it. The first 2 weeks of being there were, I would probably wrap it up as, it felt like torture to me, you know, as somebody who had been so go, 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 and then all of a sudden having hours to breathe, to stare out the window, to meditate, to reflect internally. It was very confronting. And after a couple of weeks, I had what can only be described as a meltdown and a breakdown. And what I expected the monks who worked there to come up and go, oh gosh, we hope you're okay. They said, this is fantastic news. We're so thrilled to see this. And from there forward, I felt like I had greater capacity to breathe and express myself and go with the flow in a way that I didn't prior to that.
Wow. So they actually were really happy that you'd broken the ego, I'm assuming, and the external world, and that you were then connected with your inner self and just able to sit. Because one of the things now, Tammi, is people find it really difficult to even like, and I know this myself, when I was meditating at home, I'm like, right, I'm going to turn my timer on for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and 20 minutes, 25, and work my way up and just get used to sitting by myself, no technology, nothing, just silence, my own breath, and being in my own presence. And that is challenging because at the moment we're so used to every spare second looking at the phone, doing. So when you're right, when you go to stop, whether that's with the monks or at home, the mind and the brain and everything's like, what? So yeah, just do you continue now, Tammi, those practices? Like you obviously learned how to meditate, and is meditation now a big part of your life in terms of preventing the burnout?
To your first point, being able to sit still at home, wherever you are, is very confronting for almost everybody. You know, not too many of us have carved out time in our day to sit and breathe. And for most of us, the first time that we experience something like that, it's an assault for the senses because we have our to-do list running through our head, what we're going to have for dinner, you know, if you've got kids, worrying about where they're at, you know, have you called your partner? Did you message your mother-in-law? You know, did you send that message to your work? And it just bombards the brain because it's been waiting to be heard. So the first time people start, it is very, very confronting. And I always recommend people start off with guided meditation as opposed to sitting in a room staring at a candle flame on their own, because it will really, really give them a bit of a shock to the system. Do I meditate now? It's a non-negotiable for me. Having a mind and a personality like mine, if I don't meditate, I get easily wound up. I'm nicer to be around when I regularly meditate. I'm less stressed and more productive. You know, it's just a non-negotiable now.
I love hearing that, Tammi. It's a non-negotiable. I can resonate with that because if I meditate, so I make time in the morning and in the evening, I feel so much better inside. I feel like I'm able to cope with stress better. My thoughts, like when I do it regularly, they're not overthinking, because I'm like you, I'm a very big creative thinker, and the mind's always thinking ahead and it's thinking like creatively. So the meditation helps me to really bring those thoughts and ground myself and just really calm everything. And I think that's why I love like sharing you today, because anxiety, we all have it at some degree, and it's sometimes in our lives it's more extreme and debilitating, where people can't even leave, you know, their house, or other times we're experiencing it just watching the news and, you know, or at the shops this year with COVID-19. And it happens for people in so many different ways. But I really love at the moment, especially in 2020, how with COVID-19, we're openly talking about anxiety, and it's not something to be embarrassed about, ashamed. It is like that human response to trauma, tragedy, stress, like ongoing stress. Now, Tammi, you obviously had the burnout. What are some things you're doing now to prevent burnout? What are some of your self-care rituals?
Yoga is a major one for me. It's the ability to combine breath with movement is great for the busy brains out there. You know, it's been something that I've done since I was 12 years old. It just runs through my veins, and it is such a grounding practice for me. Reading before bed is another major one. I am a bookworm through and through, and I am reading absolutely every single day. I just inhale books. I adore them and I love them, and I feel so proud to be part of the tribe that is an author now. You know, some of those are the things that I do. But I want to make sure that for anybody listening, they go, oh, yoga, oh, meditation. If that's not your thing, no problemos. You know, you might you might really identify with going for long runs. That's combining breath with movement. You know, you might really love watching the sunset. That's a meditation. It doesn't have to be this very traditional sitting in a lotus pose, staring off into the distance kind of vibe to be able to be self-care. And one of the other things that comes up all the time when we talk about self-care is people say things like, you know, it's running myself a bubble bath, and it's having 1 square of dark chocolate every day, and it's calling one of my friends every week. And while those things are beautiful, lovely rituals and great intentions to have, if we feel like we're not moving towards a version of ourselves that feels consistent with our values, moving towards making some sort of impact on ourselves or our families or our communities, it's very difficult to feel fulfilled. And a square of chocolate, while it's going to be great in the moment, just might not cut it as far as that long-term commitment to self-care.
Wow, I love your words of wisdom, Tammi. So you love the yoga, you love the meditation, but I do love how you shared that self-care can be movement, it can be running, it can be watching the sunset. And I totally agree with that. And are you big on, do you have days when you feel totally exhausted because you still are an author, you are a coach, I mean, you have your outside world and life as well, not to mention Instagram, and all of those things. Are there days when you feel like, I just need to rest, and you tune into your body, yourself, your mind, and show yourself self-compassion and go, you know what, it's okay to rest?
Oh, me oh my, yes. And I'd love to say I've always had that easily at the drop of a hat, but it's something I still really continuously need to work on. And what I need to do is look at the indicators of anxiety, exhaustion, burnout, overwork, and recognize if those are coming up, and then consciously take a step to go, oh, my jaw is tense, my shoulders are tight, I'm a little bit clumsy, and I've snapped at my husband. Oh, there are those indicators again. Okay, I need to consciously cancel some things or carve out time. And then I really need to prompt myself to do that. It doesn't come as naturally to me as it does come to a lot of other people. And so I've had to create some techniques essentially around that to make sure I do it, because otherwise I would work all day. I adore what I do. I described it to one of my friends recently. I said, it's, you know, if you eat one piece of cake and you go, oh, that was delicious, I want to have another piece. And so you have another piece of cake and you say, I knew it was delicious. I knew it was delicious. I'm going to eat the whole cake now. And when you've eaten the whole cake, the thing that brought you the joy and the excitement all of a sudden makes you feel sick to the stomach. So I'm quite conscious that even though the things like writing and connecting with others and coaching and meditating and running workshops and all of this wellness stuff fills me up, if I have too much, it's going to make me sick to the stomach. So I consciously have to make sure that there are things in place that I take care of myself which better allow me to then take care of others too.
Oh, wow. So you obviously set yourself boundaries, but you tune in with triggers. You sound like you're so self-aware. You mentioned if I'm getting snappy at my husband, or so you're just feeling into your body and how you're feeling. And I can resonate with that. Even this week, I set out this plan this week. Okay, I'm going to walk this day, so structured. And then I came home after work and I was feeling like, oh, I said I was going to, do the walk. I've got to do it. But then when I tuned in, my soul needed me to do like a yin yang yoga and to chill, to relax. And I had to make that decision. I can push myself, but then I'm not listening to what my body, mind, and soul needs. So I can really resonate, and I'm sure a lot of the audience and listeners can too, where you get so structured, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, and then you can go against how you feel. And would you say the same, Tammi? It's when you go against how you're feeling that you can, like you say, that you can get sick to the stomach and sick to the core. So Tammi, in your book, you share a lot of decision trees. And want to ask you a question. You called your book The Panic Button Book, and you've written this beautiful book, which we're going to dive a little bit into now. What inspired you to write the book? And can you share more about your book with our audience who may not have grabbed their copy yet?
The thing that prompted me to write the book was about 3.5 years ago. I was at home with my now husband, and out of seemingly nowhere, I had the third panic attack that I'd ever had in my life. And I was sitting on a kitchen stool, and he turned around and I was just paralyzed, essentially. I was bawling my eyes out. All of my muscles had tensed up and my ability to speak to him was completely diminished and gone. And, as any lovely husband would react, he was kind of frightened, and he'd never seen something like this. He'd never been exposed to something like this. And he had absolutely no clue how to respond, as most people wouldn't. And I remember so clearly wishing that there was another version of me standing next to me in my full functionality saying, Tammi, we know what's happening now. This is what we need to do. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. And it would have been able to neutralize where I was at and give my husband some breathing space as well, because he didn't have to necessarily take control of the situation that he didn't know how to take control of. And, I was thinking at the time, he's handing me tissues. I was so incapacitated, I couldn't reach a tissue, or I couldn't bring it up to my face to wipe my face. And, that lasted a fair chunk of time. And the next day, for anybody who's ever had or experienced a panic attack, they might identify with what I refer to as an anxiety hangover, which is it feels like you've run a marathon the day before because your muscles have tensed up so dramatically that they're literally unfurling and releasing. And so the next day I was still a bit of jelly. And then about a week later, I reflected on the moment and I thought, gosh, what am I going to do if that happens again? We can't go through that without some kind of support. And so I literally pulled out a pen and a scabby old notebook, and I wrote down a set of essentially decision trees, these questions of what were the most common things that came up for me personally when I felt worried or anxious in some way, and then what I needed to do if that occurred. And there were questions like, are you comparing yourself to someone else? Or do you feel like an imposter? Or have you left something to the last minute? Are you trying to get perfection from yourself? Are you expecting perfection from someone else? And if there were a no, it just meant I'd go to the next question until I got to one that nailed what I was feeling in that moment. And then all I had to do was follow the instructions. And I used this battered notebook with my handwritten questions in a pink gel pen for about a year, and it consistently neutralized my anxiety over and over again. It never left me air punching or feeling like I wanted to go out and shout from the rooftops, but it neutralized and it got me back to a baseline. And, you know, I used some of it with a couple of my life coaching clients, and it was from that I went, you know what, if this is helping me and my clients so much, I would be honored to be able to get this out to a broader audience, and hence why I then went down the path of turning it into a book.
Oh, wow. Tammi, that is such an inspiring and empowering story that you're able to take the learnings of your own health and what was happening internally, and then the thoughtfulness of others around you, like your husband, experiencing that, and then you then wanting to help not only your clients but also the wider community and the rest of the community to neutralize the anxiety. Because in your book you do such a beautiful step-by-step here, like living and working. Are you feeling responsible for the world right now? Are your muscles tense? Are you struggling to switch off from work? And I know that that's one thing I think perfectionists and people who are overachievers, go-getters, really struggle with. We want everything to be perfect, everything to be right. And have you found that the anxiety that you often experience is either you're pushing yourself too much, like you're a hard worker, you're an overachiever, a high achiever, and quite often they often say that stress, and I've experienced this myself, but stress can cause so many things within the body and the brain and the mind, but generally overdoing things and pushing yourself so much can be the trigger to many things, whether it's anxiety, depression, burnout. Do you feel that that is sort of one of your core, like one of the triggers for you, the work?
Yes, but everybody's different. So for me, as I mentioned before, I love what I do, and so it's easy to become almost addicted to it. I'm quite conscious of not doing that now most of the time. But yes, it certainly is a trigger for me. For most people, underneath that sort of higher level layer, so for me and a lot of people that I work with, it is a work-based trigger, or they want to be the best parent they can possibly be, or whatever it is. But underneath pretty much all of that is this desire to control our circumstances, and that's the real kicker when it comes to anxiety. And being able to relinquish that control and manage our experience and relationship with control is a huge key in understanding, acknowledging, and then managing that anxiety.
Wow. Thank you, Tammi, for sharing that. In your book, you actually have something in here on page 15. Are you worrying about something that's outside your control? So this year with COVID-19, I honestly can resonate with this. I feel that everyone globally, and to our listeners tuning in, I'm sure you can resonate also with this, because we've all had something we've been worrying about that's out of our control, whether it's our job, the economy, our health, our elderly loved ones, There is so much to worry about. If you let yourself worry, there are so many things, but that worry can take over. And even I experienced that anxiety, the fear, to the point where when we went into the first lockdown, I had to catch myself out because I was like, I'm making myself sick. I'm literally making myself sick. I was worrying about when we first went into the lockdown, I was worrying about touching stuff, hand sanitizing. We were taught to believe we didn't know where the virus was. It was out there in the community. That was in the mid-March lockdown, and it could spread. And there was such a big burden on myself, and I'm sure Tammi and the listeners can resonate, where the burden was put on us that we might have no symptoms, but we could have the COVID-19. Then we could give that to our families and friends, but family, and kill them. So that was a very big worry, because that was the messaging coming at us, and it was so intense, and I never had that amount of pressure put on me. And the anxiety level I experienced was so through the roof that I just decided I've got to take control here. I've got to just stop worrying, do the distancing, do the hand sanitizing, and all I can do is my best, and that's it. And all the people that are still on the mainstream media telling us, the worrying messages, the fearful messages, isn't making anything better. So I just completely switched off the TV. And when I'm taking control, I'm going to do what's required. And as long as I've done my best, I'm feeling good about that. So Tammi, you talk about in your book about what you can do in here, and you have a decision tree, which I loved. But your tip here was get out a pen and paper. In 2 bullet points, write down what you can and can't control in this situation. Where is this a practice that you do regularly also if worry comes up for you?
Yeah, it is. And I think being able to discriminate between the elements of a situation that you can control and those that you can't is such a major component. And once you've realized the things that you can't control, the visualization that comes next in that decision tree is essentially visualizing that there's a massive big vacuum tube coming down from the sky, and it's sucking up whatever goes underneath it. And you put all of those elements that you can't control into the vacuum tube and watch them get sucked up into the sky and out of your hands. Because if we continue to mull over the things that we really can't control once we've done our bits and pieces, it can erode us to the core. And this one in particular goes hand in hand, one with the psychological concepts of releasing that control, but then also the spiritual concept of surrender as well. We've done our piece, then we give it over to the world around us to do their bit, and then you just got to wait and see. And being able to loop in a visual component to that certainly helps me. One thing that I add to that is when I was 16, my first job was working as a checkout chick in a supermarket. And when there's too much money in the till, it's a lot of pressure, right? And so you take all of that money out of the till and you put it in a cash tube, and then you put it into that very special cash vacuum, and you press the button and it gets sucked up out of your till. You don't have to think about it anymore, and it goes up into the sky, into that cash vacuum. And I always felt so relieved when that part had happened, and I didn't have to control that till in quite the same way. So combining that visual is something that has started since I was 16.
I love this visualization, the vacuum, the sucking up part, because that's incredible, that whole visualization. And Tammi, I also too was a checkout chick growing up in Australia. I think the funniest thing was my lineups used to be huge because I'd be chatting to all the old ladies trying to make their day and having a chat. And I asked an old 90-year-old once, what's your tip for longevity? And she said, eating butter, love. But anyway, long story short, I was the only junior, but I'll never forget the day the managers said to me, we want you to be friendly to the customers, but you still need to get them through. But we didn't even have conveyor belts then. You know, I'm trying to pull up and there was brown paper bags. I mean, this is going back a long time, but checkout shifts is the start of a thriving career. So big shout out actually to all of the people who work in retail, and especially at the supermarket, because I often just go, you know what? They don't get paid enough to deal with the public sometimes. Some of the things I see that go on, and even while we were like at home, not working during lockdown, they were still there, essential staff, but big shout out to them for being incredible. But Tammi, I love this other, you have so much in the book, but there's another thing I feel would really resonate with our audience. Are you comparing yourself to someone else? Now, I get this question a lot from young bloggers. So young bloggers, people just getting into media, people just starting out. They're so unsure of themselves because they don't know themselves, but they're trying to be someone. You know, they're 21 and trying to be an entrepreneur, which is cool. But what I know was when I was in my 20s, I really didn't know who I was. It's taken me so long to figure out what I like, what I don't like. And it's been a journey. And I kind of just tell everyone, just do you and become a better version of you. But people of all ages, if they look at someone else's page, they'll compare themselves to how many followers that person has, how many likes they get, their body shape or size, the quality of their photos, and they're comparing. So tips for our audience, you write a lot more in this book and there's a decision tree, but just little tips to help someone out there who might be struggling with comparing themselves to someone else.
And it's so rampant now with the age of social media. It's human nature to compare ourselves to those around us. And in some respects, it can be a positive thing because we can call on something called upward social comparison, which is where we look at people who are doing better than us in some way. And if we actively look for the similarities between ourselves and that person, so let's say they might be a similar age to you, grew up in a similar country to you, then you can give your brain a little bit of a message to say, well, if they can do it and we've got all these similarities, I can do it too. And that can often give a bit of relief, certainly when we're comparing. But in the book, and for those playing along, essentially on the left-hand pages of the book is one question. In this case, are you comparing yourself to someone else? And then on the right-hand side is that step-by-step decision tree. And if you were to answer yes to that question, the first step is to bring to mind the person you're comparing yourself to. Second step is to consider this concept. If we judge others when they have what we want, it pushes our desire further away. And then the next step is even if it feels tricky, in your mind say, dear insert person here, I'm so happy for you for having X number of Instagram followers, let's say. It's really wonderful. Congratulations. And then there's a bonus that if you know the person, actually tell them that you're genuinely happy for them in some way. And the more that we can celebrate the success that other people have that we identify with and that we want to have, the closer it pulls it and manifests towards us, because it aligns the energy in such a way that what we want is handshaking with gratitude, congratulations, and joy. And even though I really understand that's a difficult, confronting, and challenging thing to do, if you give it a go, I'd love to hear how people go and if it helps pull what they want towards them.
I love your tips, word of wisdom. They're so on point, Tammi, because here's an example. We have so many incredible Australian authors right now, and you are one of them, Tammi. Alison Frames, we've just had Caesar Ye, Sarah Davidson's book. There's so many incredible authors at the moment launching. And what better way that we all get to celebrate each other's, I'm getting goosebump moment. That's always a big sign the universe and the spirit is in alignment. But it's just so exciting to be part of other people's success and happiness, and to celebrate and to support, because that to me is so key. Like, it's incredible. And the people you meet by doing that is so phenomenal, and no one's off limits. Like, I know you can talk to so many people via social media, just through DM, or even leaving a comment just saying you love their work, you love their artwork, you love their positive affirmation. I mean, it's so nice just to share the happiness, love, and joy. And once we approach it in that way, and I was listening, Tammi, to a motivational speaker, and Ed Milet, and he has a podcast show, and he also talks about surrounding yourself with people that have the same values, but also people somewhat at a higher level where you're wanting to learn or striving to be. So you admire to be not 100% like them, but you admire to get to that level for whatever you're achieving. So it's more that mentorship and looking at it from a learning and a personal development. So Tammi, you obviously surround yourself with people who fill your cup up energy-wise. Is that really important for you and for your clients at VisionScope Coaching, people who are in your surrounding?
Oh, yeah. And I think it's commonly spoken about that we're the average of the 5 people that we spend the most of our time with. And, you know, when I first started VisionScope Coaching, it was a really funny transition, because everybody I knew had a more traditional work path, in particular surrounding, you know, the Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, or, you know, 7 till 9 kind of job. And then when I transitioned into doing work for myself and setting up a business, it was a bit of a rocky time, because I had to find people who got this new lifestyle. You know, I might not work on a Monday, but I am working on a Saturday, or I might sleep in, but I am recording something at night, and finding people who get you, and have, you know, they're interesting and interested. They're doing things in the world that you admire in some way, is something that is really important to me. And it definitely fills me up, and it fuels me to have those people around. In saying that, you don't kick to the curb all of your old people. You know, it's important to still have people from all different experiences to keep you grounded. And particularly for anybody who, you know, swans around in the meditation and yoga-based circles, it's very easy to only be friends with people with the exact same lifestyle as you. And then, you know, that's where we get surprised and shocked when the world does things like Brexit or Trump or whatever it is, because we go, oh my gosh, I don't know a single person that thinks that way or sees the world that way. So the more that we can make sure that we're still in touch with lots of different walks of life and respect and honor all of those, while keeping closer to us the people who lift us up and fill our cup, I think it's the best-ish possible balance we can go for.
Wow, that's incredible. Tammi, when it comes to filling up your own cup, as a business owner, do you have try to have a full day off and just sort of slouch around, have a self-care day, couch day, a reading book day? Do you have days off where you'll schedule in, okay, I'm not doing any clients, I'm not creating content, it's just me and my husband and family and friends?
Yes, that is Sunday.
Yes, I love that. Self-love Sunday. I do the same, self-care Sunday. We do it globally as a community, #SpiritGirl. So what does a Sunday look like for you, for our listeners who are tuning in or watching this on Spirit Girl YouTube?
It means no alarm in the morning, which is my favorite part, because it means when I go to bed on a Saturday night, I go, oh, I just feel like I can melt into bed because I can wake up whenever I want. After that, it means a fancy, slow breakfast. On the busier days where you've got to make a quick smoothie, on Sundays, you can take your time and there's no plans already in place. If you feel like going somewhere, you can go. If not, you can watch Netflix. It's a day where things aren't previously scheduled. And as somebody who didn't have that day for a long time, because I was, attempting to build this business and doing whatever it took, and I really cherish it now. It feels lovely, and there's longer, slower cups of tea and time to go to the beach or whatever it is. It just feels lovely.
Yeah, I love this, Tammi. I love Sundays. So when I was a little kid growing up, my mum religiously, I learnt self-care Sunday then. And it was all about, it was back in the old days, the shops were legit closed. Coles and Woolies didn't even exist then in my neighborhood. And her whole day was centered around juices and healthy eating. She always did her nails on the patio, but reading feel-good books, feel-good movies. So I learned that day of rest. And I assumed that every Aussie kid learnt this. And then I've since found out no. So when I started the whole self-care Sunday and sharing what I learned as a kid, I've discovered that even there are some mums or people who don't have that Sunday as their rest day, but I'm learning more and more and meeting more and more and hearing more and more entrepreneurs and authors and founders and everyday women and guys who are carving out old school Sundays for me. Sunday's a rest day. And I feel if we could teach the younger generation, if people have got kids out there, if you could get them to slow down on a Sunday as well, and for them to start self-care practices, that would be incredible. Tammi, you do a lot of work also with parents. One of the things I'm finding and hearing all the time is children now who use social media technology and just they're at school, so much pressure, so much stress. They know the word anxiety inside out. They're very open with talking about it. However, some people who maybe grew up talking about anxiety was a very taboo thing, mental health, because there was such a stigma. We are trying to break down the mental health stigma by calling it brain health and the importance of brain health. And neuroscientists are doing an amazing job, and psychologists and yourself, Tammi, and many, many authors who are opening up, and business people opening up about anxiety and depression and things like that, and proving that you can still have a thriving career, you can still be live a great life when you work on managing it or getting therapy or getting treatment or whatever it might be to help. What were some things, Tammi, were you worried about? Did you go through a stage you were worried about opening up about having panic attacks and opening up about anxiety and wondering maybe what my family might think or friends, or like, was there a moment? I'm just thinking for someone out there might be going, you know what, I really love to be like Tammi and open up, or like Yvette, freely open up to say, hey, anxiety happens to all of us, different stages in our life, and it's okay. You're not crazy, you know, because that's the old school mentality, the stigma that was attached to it. Any words of wisdom, Tammi, for someone wanting to speak out or open up but are too fearful of the judgment? Like, I feel that the more we open up, the more we can help each other, and the more we can say, you know what, it's okay. You know, it's okay you're feeling that way.
You know, it takes great courage to be able to admit that you're not a perfect human, and admitting that you worry more than maybe the average person is a very challenging thing to do. When I first started actually calling it anxiety, my family, you could have knocked them over with a feather. They didn't see it coming at all. And this is what occurs very frequently with the version that's referred to as high functioning anxiety, which is where an individual still has all of the same anxiety-based and worry-based symptoms, but they've become excellent at covering up that struggle through achievement and through external traditional-based success. And so because I have been fortunate to always been relatively articulate and have abilities to solve problems and do well at school and uni and work, it came as a great shock to my family. And I found that it actually took a while for me to almost convince them and some of the people around me that no, even though it looks like I've got it together, there are large parts of me that can't sleep and feel like I can't breathe and struggle through certain parts of the day. So part of my advice is actually to be prepared that people might not see it coming, and to have the courage to keep having those conversations. Another experience I had was when I saw a psychologist many years ago, and I said, you know, I'm really struggling at work. I feel like I'm very anxious. And she said, you know what, if you can travel on your own and go overseas on your own and have this job, you can't possibly be anxious. And one, that is completely untrue and possibly not the best psychologist going around. I thereafter, everyone will be happy to know, stopped seeing her. However, you know, these are moments that may come up for people when they finally take that big, courageous, brave, heart-filled leap, and they might not get the response that they're after. And to say, okay, well, I did the thing. I said the scary thing to my GP or to my partner, and it didn't entirely go down where I thought it was going to go, or I didn't get the support offered to me that I thought. I really encourage all of those people to try again and keep going until they do have somebody that recognizes them and sees and hears what they're trying to say and values the internal instinct of them, because we all know ourselves better than anybody else knows us. And to be able to keep going until somebody recognizes that and somehow you find your version of support is really important.
Oh, wow, Tammi, thank you for opening up and sharing that journey, because like you said, it's interesting. People just look at you, high achiever, articulate, amazing in business, and like, no, you've got it together. But I guess it's a reminder. I was sitting there thinking, I love your advice about just like the first psychologist was didn't even think you had anxiety. So they're like, well, you'll be fine. You're traveling, you're doing this, you're all good. But you're like, you're finding it hard to breathe, sleep. Obviously, your heart rate has increased, and you're feeling physical elements as well. And so the advice was just to keep going and find that support, that person that can have empathy for you, resonate with you, and listen to how you are feeling. Because it definitely sounded there you need someone who can listen to how you feel and be that sounding board. And I've often heard that it's best to seek professional help because sometimes family and friends they're not qualified in that area or trained and able to direct you on the path. But Tammi, like, you are doing incredible things. Parenting obviously is a challenging thing. Everyone wants amazing children. They really want incredible teenagers who just eat healthy, exercise, don't ask for money. They don't want the latest iPhone. They don't want to go to parties and party and drink and do all those terrible things that are not good for your brain. But as you know, parenting is stressful. And I loved this bit here, which I just want to shout out. Are you worried you might stuff your kids up? And it says literally here on page 115, yes or no. If you said no, you get to turn to the next page. If you said yes, take comfort in the idea that this is a common thought and the part of your kid's development won't be impacted by your behavior. Put your hands on your heart and say to yourself, even though I'm doing my best, part of my children's development is out of my hands. And you go on to saying a lot more there, but inhale deeply, exhale all worry. That I felt was the best piece of advice for parents, because I'm talking to so many parents who have so much anxiety towards the world that their children are living in. Like, we've got kids in primary school using adult apps, like adult social media apps. We've got teenagers knowing about sex, and they don't even have to tell them about the beads and birds, because in grade 7, they're in grade 8 and grade 9, and they're growing up knowing all about this sex stuff, and it's in music and it's on Instagram and being sexy. But so there's so much anxiety with parenting. Like, parents want their children to do the best, to feel the best, to take the right choices. So Tammi, do you see that in your field of work when you're working with women or men, and a concern that comes up is about children, their children?
Oh, massively. And for any of the clients that I've pretty much ever worked with, as soon as I say, how are you feeling in your role as being a mum? You know, how do you feel like it's going? It almost breaks every person I ask that question to, because it is so close to most people's hearts in, you know, that's their world, and more than anything, they want their children to be safe and healthy and happy. And if they feel like they can impact that in some way, of course people are going to want to do that. However, what tends to muddy the water a little is when the control goes too far in feeling that feeling of, well, every single thing I do is going to impact their outcomes as a living, breathing, functioning adult. And to an extent, you know, kids are sponges. You know, they mirror what we do, and and they suck in so much. But at the end of the day, we can only do the best that we can do. And then again, it's seeing that vacuum tube and letting the rest that we can't control be sucked on up out of our hands.
I love that vacuum sucked and taken out of our hands, because that is incredible advice, Tammi. And big shout out to every parent, grandparent, auntie, uncle, carer, teacher, mentor out there who's trying to really support these young children, many who are very troubled, unfortunately, not all, but some really feeling the pressures of social media, not having enough followers, not having the six-pack, not having the bikini body, the body pressures, the body image they're under, the Snapchatting. They can all know each other's location now. Kids, I've been trying to send a really old school message, and I hope every influencer could too, whereas if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all. And the more we can take responsibility when using Facebook, as an example, even if someone has a different opinion to yours, that's okay. That's fine. Let them have their say. It's their page. It's their belief. Let them have freedom of speech. Let them speak. Let them say what they have to say, and just let them be. And that is great power if you can just let someone be themselves, say what they think. You do not have to go up and fight them. So for every person out there who reads something and then they get so angry and worked up and then they go up against that person, no, I don't agree with that. When as adults, if we teach children this, we are not being good role models. So the more as adults we can just show that you don't need to fight on social media. You do not need to argue. I actually deleted Facebook, Tammi, and to all of the listeners for quite a while there, because when COVID-19 happened, people were just going up against and fighting each other where they believed where the virus came, where it didn't come, who started it, who didn't, who's in fault, regardless. No matter how much they were fighting with each other, it wasn't going to change anything. That still hasn't. So, Tammi, before we say goodbye, what is something you would really love for your readers when they pick up a copy of the Panic Button book? What would you want to come from this, or what would you like to see come from your book now?
I'd love for everybody who gets drawn to this book to, once they've opened it, flicked through it and engaged with the book, to feel seen and heard and valued, and that if they were feeling wobbly beforehand, that they feel okay afterwards. Simple as that.
I love that. If you're feeling wobbly beforehand, that you would feel okay afterwards. That is so beautiful, so beautiful. And Tammi, I don't know if I've opened this on the most incredible page leading up for Christmas, but there's one section here. I'm just going to read this. Are you upset with your partner? I love this. It says, yes. Take a deep breath in. Take a deep breath out. Now, this, I don't know, this is like the universe, because I have had so many people lately say that they're really upset with their partner because he might not be doing enough housework, or she might not be. Okay, we won't get sexist here, but he or she, either way. But I love how you go right down the main thing you're upset with, write down your best guess about why they may have acted this way, write down how it made you feel, write down what outcome or change you would like to see. Leave the list to the side for 5 minutes while you do something else, and then talk through your list with your partner. Love this. There's nothing about fighting or yelling at your partner, throwing pots and pans at her or him, or like this is such good advice, Tammi. And obviously, when we get worked up, because we can, if our house is not spotless or something is just out of place and out of sorts. So I love your book. I love the step by step. It's very like, try this, do this, practical. And I really feel this is a gorgeous book for anyone out there now struggling during COVID-19. Their world's been tipped upside down. So many people are experiencing anxiety, some people for the first time. Many people have opened up and said, I never knew what this anxiety was before this year. Like, I'd heard about it, but never felt it. So this is such a beautiful gift, Tammi. Now, how can we stay in touch with you after this Spirit Girl podcast show so we can grab a copy, we can stay in touch with you and be part of your incredible community too?
So you can get a copy online or in all good bookstores in Australia, New Zealand, US, Canada, and soon to be the UK as well. And then to engage directly, I'm on Instagram at Tammi Kirkness, Tammi with an I, and then VisionScopeCoaching.com online too.
Oh, wow, Tammi. And can I ask, if someone's wanting to they're just feeling overwhelmed, got loads of anxiety, just struggling just to get through their day, or even struggling with their teenager kids, and just coping with them, can they book in with you for obviously coaching sessions and help with their own personal life, and then you'll tailor it to guide them through?
Indeed. Yes, that's what I do when I'm not writing books.
Yeah, I really wanted to share that. So that's a great help to everyone. So Tammi, we will say goodbye to you. Thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom, opening up about your panic attacks, anxiety, burnout, stress, anxiety, all of those things, but also going one step further and writing this incredible book, the Panic Button book. And big thanks and shout out to Murdoch Books also for picking this up and wanting to help other people who are going through this, because we are not alone. We should always reach out, ask for help. There are so many incredible hotlines out there now. If anyone is struggling with anxiety, see your doctor, have a chat. And like you said, Tammi, if the first doctor isn't, on the same wavelength or therapist, try again, but do seek help. Don't suffer in silence. And beautiful book out there for every teenager, mother, person who just wants to personally develop a better relationship with anxiety and neutralize their worrying, overthinking mind. So thank you, Tammi, from the bottom of my heart. You are part of the Spirit Girl Book Club. Grab a copy, Big W, Kmart, online, anywhere, Dimmix, Amazon.com. And thanks again, Tammi, for being a guest. I love your work, and thank you for opening up to help our audience and the rest of the world too.
Oh, such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Tammi. We will officially say goodbye to Tammi Kirkness. I really hope that tuning into this show inspires you to work on how you feel from the inside out, to neutralize your anxiety, worrying, overthinking. If you have a family member or friend, or even a stranger that you feel that this show could help improve their life, feel free to share. Subscribe to the Spirit Girl podcast show, leave a rating and review, and tell someone you love to. And until next time, love you all to bits. Be yourself. You are incredible, beautiful. You've got this. Bye for now.